Hello, thank you for joining. This is one of many sessions that we're doing here at Dynamics Futures, the next era of business. This particular session is called AI in Action, Transforming Dynamics 365 Field Service Operations with Copilot. My name is Bill McGibney. I'm a director with the Customer Engagement Practice here at RAN Group, and I will be talking to you for the next several minutes about AI, because of course we have to talk about AI. It's what everyone is talking about. It does seem like AI is continuing to embed itself in just about every aspect of our lives here in 2025. So even if you're not using it too extensively just yet, I can assure you that your competitors are. So it's important to stay ahead of the competition and understand what functionality and capabilities are out there. So that's what we'll be doing today, specifically as it relates to Dynamics 365 Field Service. Obviously part of Microsoft's Power Platform, and one nice thing about being part of that platform is you're going to benefit from the fact that Microsoft is pouring so many investments into the future of AI. They're just putting a ton of their resources into research and development around AI. And so having your operations, your field service users inside of Dynamics 365 is definitely going to help make sure that you are getting access to all of that cutting edge technology. So let's get right to it. For those of you that aren't too familiar yet with Dynamics 365 Field Service, though, like I said, it's part of Microsoft's Power Platform, which is a low-code environment that allows users to configure a system, to meet their specific business requirements. Field Service, in particular, is one of several applications that's part of what they call Dynamics 365. It lives on a database that they have branded Dataverse, all cloud-based software as a service. But it does come with quite a bit of native functionality related to enabling field service organizations to do what they do best and keep track of those work orders or those jobs that their customers are requesting. They're getting assigned to a technician, they're sending those technicians out to various service locations, and they're performing some kind of service. It could be an installation, it could be repair, something like that, something to, either on a proactive basis make sure that their assets are continuing to work well moving forward, or in some instances doing reactive, repair type of work on those assets. But generally kind of tying all those things together, making sure that customers stay informed of when those work orders are going to be completed and things like that is really at the heart of what Dynamics 365 Field Service is here to do. So when we talk about Copilot, obviously Copilot is kind of integrating itself throughout various applications, but for the purposes of today's call, we're going to focus primarily on the features that are available directly within Field Service. So I'm sure you're familiar with Copilot and other AI tools that are out there. Microsoft calls it Copilot because of the fact that it's really meant to be there as an assistant, not necessarily front and center, but in a lot of cases, literally off to the side. We're going to spend a lot of time on today's call, when I get to the demo portion of it, looking at sidebars, either right inside of Outlook or Dynamics 365, that are able to use the Copilot AI technology to just help assist you with whatever task you have in front of you. You can use it to chat, ask it questions, or you can directly tell it, hey, here's something like an email that I need help with. And it'll, in real time provide you with some suggestions that will help you complete whatever you're doing as quickly as possible. So there's a lot that Copilot does well, but some of the things that I would highlight are the fact that it can automate tasks for you. So, it's generative AI. You're not having to, maybe spend as much time typing up emails or, in the case of sales, quotes or statements of work. If you can just describe to it what you're looking for, it can turn that around to you. Now, obviously, you're going to want to edit it, review it, make sure that it's all accurate, but it can really make tasks like that go much faster. And another nice thing about it is the fact that it's a natural language interface. Meaning it's not like the old days of using search engines back early on. For those of you that are old enough to remember the days when you really had to be thoughtful about what keywords you were going to put into a search bar, otherwise you might not get the results you were expecting. These days, yes, you still want to be thoughtful about how you write your prompt, but you can really use much more natural language than you would with a traditional search bar. Personally, when I'm writing a prompt, I sometimes get lost in the fact that I'm technically working with a computer at the end of the day. Uh, I find myself using some of the same polite terms that I would use if I'm interacting with a human, like saying please and thank you. I'm sure my mother would be proud of me, but it's funny to think that I probably don't have to do that technically. Um, you know, maybe maybe it does help me get better responses back, but I'm not sure yet. Either way, the point is I feel so natural when I'm writing those prompts that I just speak to it the same way I would speak to a normal human. And often I get the results I'm looking for that way. So you can just type natural sentences and oftentimes get what you need. The last point I would make on one of the key benefits of using Copilot, and this really is specific to Copilot as opposed to some of the other AI tools out there, is that it's context aware. And what I mean by that is, a couple of things. One is it's going to remember the conversation that you're currently having. So you can ask it a really detailed question explaining exactly what you're trying to do, and then ask it follow-up questions. And you don't have to re-explain yourself. It understands that what you're following up on directly relates to the conversation that you are already having. So it already has that context and can put together a response very efficiently. The other thing that it has the context of is your organization's assets. So, you could ask it to generate something like a quote using the same formatted template that we've used for other customers. And because this is part of Microsoft 365, it has access to, your company's email, documents, things like that. It can go out and find that and make sure that that it's actually using those resources to get you an accurate answer back. The other thing that it can do well is use the writing style or the voice that you've used with other documents. So if you're trying to put together a PowerPoint or a Word document, maybe it's a statement of work, and you tell it in the prompt, make sure that you're using a similar style that we've used for other similar statements of work, then it can make sure that it matches that tone, that level of formality, and it wouldn't have that context if you were trying to put it together outside of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So having that context really is helpful. It'll make sure that you're not getting, generic responses that would apply to just about any organization, but something that really is tailored to your organization. So when we think about specific use cases that we're going to use Copilot for inside of Dynamics 365 field service, there's really a lot that it can do. I mean, it's almost endless, the types of things that it can help out with. But here's some specific ones that I would point out and that I would want to touch on here. Number one, if your goal is to improve service delivery, you can use some of those sidebar chat features just to help make sure that you are getting the context that you need as quickly as possible. There's this concept of a work order summary, so it can automatically summarize an existing work order for you. And that'll prevent you from having to, scroll through the details of each work order that you're assigned to, having to look through that timeline and get to that information, which can be done. It's just a lot more reading involved, it's going to be more time consuming, it's more painstaking. So it just makes that go a lot faster for you. When you think about intelligent scheduling, there are tools that Copilot can use to really help dispatchers whose job is to look at the work orders that are coming in, figure out the best resource, the best time to get that work order assigned to, so it can be booked to someone who's able to complete that, effectively. So there are tools to help with that we'll take a look at. And then predictive inventory is going to allow someone in purchasing, without having to dig through details of the product inventory table and looking at various warehouses, you can just ask it questions, and it'll be able to turn that information around for you much more quickly. So those are some of the examples. What I'd like to do is demonstrate some of that. When we do that, we're going to keep in mind just a really typical field service scenario. So what this slide is describing is something that would happen every single day at an organization that's using Dynamics 365 field service. But just so that we all kind of level set in terms of how we'll walk through this, a lot of the times if it's a reactive issue, it's going to be the customer identifying the issue. Obviously for preventative issues or maybe things that are identified through an IoT device, that could be more automated. But for the purposes of this scenario on today's demo, we'll look at a scenario where the customer found an issue. So they've sent an email to our organization. What I'll do first is actually log into an email inbox as a dispatcher, and we'll take a look at an email and look at some of the things that Copilot can do to help respond to that email and get a technician assigned to it. And then lastly, we'll look at it from the perspective of a technician, someone who may need to check inventory, make sure they're caught up to speed on what's going on with that account, summarize the work order, and then we will have them complete the work order. So that is the plan for that demo. And with that said, let's take a look at that email. So here's a scenario where an email has been sent. So the dispatch user is looking at an email from a customer who says, hey, my HVAC system is leaking refrigerant. So we know this is a scenario where we're going to need to assign a technician. This is an urgent issue. I can tell just from the email that this person is going to need a response as soon as possible. So first off, I'd like to respond to the email, and then we'll make sure that we get this assigned. So there's a Copilot button right in my Outlook. Again, with this concept of Copilot, you're not having to leave whatever application you're in. The idea isn't to disrupt your work, but just make it available right there. So I can open up Copilot and just say, draft a response to this email. Give it a minute to come up with a response, and I can see just from the tone of this message is saying, thank you for reaching out. I'm sorry to hear about this. I've escalated this, and we can use a lot of this content, and it can go right into the email. There's some additional prompts that I can use to kind of fine tune that, or I can just select it, copy it, or there's a copy response button here. So I can put that in here, paste it in, and hit reply. Okay. So that's one way to use just the generic Copilot features to assist with something that's going to happen, day in, day out throughout the course of the day. But another thing that's more specific to Dynamics 365 field service is the fact that I also have a Dynamics 365 field service app that's built into Outlook. And so there's going to be some AI features in here, but these features are going to be more specifically related to work orders. So notice one thing it's suggesting right away is that I create a work order for this email. So I'll click that button. And what it's doing is it's actually looking at the contents of this email, and it's directly mapping some of this information to specific fields on the work order. So it's checking things like who's it coming from, how should we prioritize it. It actually found my contact on an account called Atlantic Logistics in the system. It knows what type of incident type this is. It knows who reported it. It's filled out the summary. So, in the past, I would have had to have switched over to field service, browsed over to the new work order screen, and started keying this in manually. I don't have to do that anymore. I'm just double checking this all looks good, and I hit create. So I'm creating this work order in a matter of seconds as opposed to a matter of several minutes. Um, so I've got a required field before I can save that, but that's normally how that work order will be created. Another thing I can do is flip over to my work orders tab, which is actually showing me a list of existing work orders in the system. So for instance, I could go into any one of our existing work orders. Maybe this is an email that relates to one of these work orders, or if I just want to look at some of the information in this work order, I could do that. It's going to suggest some actions for me here. So for instance, if I've selected an existing work order, it can actually draft an email based on a specific work order. So this is a work order that already has a schedule. So it's not asking me to propose a specific schedule, but just confirm it. So I'm going to click confirm schedule. It's going to create that draft, and there's that email. So if I like all that content, I can hit add to email. It's going to open that up in a new window. And then I can actually send that out. So that's how I can use some of the other features right within the field service add-in for Outlook to be as efficient as possible with my email responses and getting work orders created from an email. Now, another thing that I can do, and I'm going to switch over into the actual Dynamics 365 environment to be able to demonstrate this. But when I'm in here, if I'm looking at a list of work orders, I can actually ask Copilot to help with scheduling resources from here, right? So maybe I know I need someone for Monday, but I'm not sure who's available. Well, we have a schedule board that I can look through. I can scroll through my schedule board until I found Monday. I can look through my list of resources, but there's also this Copilot icon off to the right. This is how you open your Copilot chat. I'm going to open up a new conversation, and I'm just going to ask it a question here. Any question I have about the field service data in my database, I can go ahead and get a quick response to. So if I know I'm looking for someone specifically on Monday, but I just don't know who's available, then I might ask, is there a resource with availability on Monday? So I'll submit that. Give it a second. It's hard at work. It's got to check all of my existing bookings and resources, and sure enough, it's coming back saying, hey, the following resources do have availability for a booking on Monday. So I can click into one of those individually. It's actually letting me go straight into that resources record. Or if I want to look at all four of them in a list, I can click show on page, and it's going to pull that up for me too. So just like that, I've got an answer to that question. Now maybe Chris Smith is someone who I know has work orders that are already scheduled. I can see Chris is listed here. And maybe I know that he's going to be booked for some of those work orders on, I'll go with October 14th. So if I ask for a specific travel route, I can do that. Just type in the date that I'm looking for, tell it to suggest a travel route, and I misspelled route. That's what happens when you're trying to do these things live, but we'll run with it. This is actually a good test to see if it knows what I was going for, and it did. So despite the typo, it's coming back to me saying, hey, you asked for a suggested travel route for Chris Smith. On that day, he's got these 3 bookings. So you need to start at that first location and then follow the order of those bookings. So this is an example where he's already booked at specific places, but now I can see what those bookings are. And again, I can click on each one of them or say show on a page to get all of those results. All right. So as a dispatcher, you can see there's lots of ways that I can use this Copilot chat to just make my life a lot more efficient. Now let's say there's an example where, I don't know, maybe this contact that sent in the email doesn't already exist in our system, right? I can go to my list of contacts, and again, in the usual method, I would either click here to create a new contact using this form, or there is an Outlook app that will allow me to create a contact from an email. Another way you can do it though is just copy information in their signature, and then come over to that new contact form. There's a smart paste button here that says it'll analyze the clipboard for form suggestions. So if I click on that, now that I've copied the email signature, notice what happens there. It's looking through everything on my clipboard and figuring out this is a first name, this is a last name, that's a job title, this is an email, that's a phone number. So it got all that. I'm just going to double check that it looks right. I can choose individual suggestions to keep or just say let's accept all of those, save and close, and now I'm done. So that's a really quick way of getting this contact entered from an email. Now in that example, I happened to copy it from the email signature, but obviously you could copy it from plenty of other places too, right? Maybe you have an image of a business card, or maybe you're copying information in from LinkedIn, and you actually can combine multiple sources here. If I maybe had a different phone number in my clipboard, and I'll just type something in real quick just to demonstrate this. A lot of times what it can do is say, okay, here's another phone number. So yeah, see, it actually just put that in my mobile phone because I had copied that from somewhere else. So point is you can keep on pasting in more and more data, and it will do its best to fill that in. There's also a way to upload an actual document. So let's actually do that for an account. So I'm going to go to my accounts view, and I'm going to go into, I'll actually use this sample invoice that I have over here, which obviously we could use to create a full-on invoice, but in this case I'll use it just to create an account. I see this is for Contoso. Notice it's very blurry, it's off-center. It's hard for me to read, let alone Copilot, but we're going to have it give it its best shot. So I'll click New Account. I'm going to upload this, and it's scanning through that invoice, trying to see what it can find. And sure enough, it found an account name, found a phone number, a website. So that all looks like information that can go onto the account form, which works for me. So I'll accept those suggestions and save this account. All right. So let's say I log in as a technician at this point. So I'm more interested in working with specific work orders. Again, I can use the Copilot chat to ask it some specific questions about my work orders. So I might need to know, maybe I know I'm working with Atlantic Logistics today, but I'm not clear who our primary contact is. I can just type that in. It's going to go out and find that contact. And sure enough, it found it. So here's a link to that record. I now have what I was looking for. So again, all possible because it has access to this data. Now, technicians specifically are usually going to be working on their mobile device. So I want to show you some screenshots from a mobile phone that are going to demonstrate some of the other options that are available through that mobile interface. What's happening here is the technician is going into their list of bookings, choosing to use Copilot to assist with one of the bookings that they're assigned to. And they've got two options. They can either summarize the work order, which is what we see demonstrated on the right. Okay, that's going to look through the history of the work order and explain to the technician, hey, you're scheduled to perform a facility assessment. It's at this location. You're expected to arrive there on this date. This is what you're going to be doing there, and here's what else you need to know. So without having to dig through all the details, I just have that surfaced to me right away. So then I can go on about my day. Another thing that's really nice, when I'm done with the work order, I can come in here and use Copilot to update the work order. This is some feedback that we often get from technicians that, just don't love the administrative side of the job as much as maybe we would like them to. So they're not always the best about updating their work orders efficiently. Well, now you can go into Copilot and say, I want to update my work order. Just tell it using natural language, either typing it in the phone or using voice to text. Explain to Copilot what you did. So I changed out this filter. I used this much coolant. I was there from this time to this time. Submit. It will automatically get those updates into the work order for you. So technicians especially love that feature. It helps them with one of the things that they're probably least excited about. One other thing before we switch over to the contact information, I just wanted to demonstrate as a purchasing user how someone in purchasing could request information about product inventory. So we'll use Copilot Chat again for that. I've got some coolant in here. I can just type in, hey, how much coolant is available? I'll give this a second to search, and now it returned. You asked how much coolant you have. You have 531 units. Perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. Notice I'm not even browsing to the inventory section of Dynamics 365. I'm just doing it all right within here. Another thing I'd probably want to know is, are there any products that are below the reorder point? Basically, do I need to go out and start creating some purchase orders? So let's ask that, and right away it came back saying, hey, we do have a product. It's filters in the Oldsmar warehouse. We don't have any of them on hand. The reorder point is 10, so it is below the reorder threshold. So again, as a purchasing user, that Copilot Chat has a lot of just really great options for being able to return that data to you without having to actually do the search or any digging on your own. So that's everything for today's session. I really appreciate you joining. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you do have any questions, let me know. If you need to contact us, our contact information is shown here. So again, thank you for joining. Hope you have a great one.